Okay, today I want to talk about one of my 3D printers. This is the Tronxy X5S. It's been a pretty good printer once I did a few upgrades, and that's really what I want to talk about today. Probably the first and most important upgrade I did was I replaced the throat tube. The throat tube had a PTFE liner that went the full length of this piece. This obviously isn't the original. This is just what I'm using to explain. This is what I use for PLA. PLA, I've used all metal hot ends on PLA. They just stick, and it's just immensely annoying. So I use PTFE lined ones for PLA. It's low temperature. For hot or plastics, your ABSs, everything else, I use all metal because why burn up your PTFE? It's bad for you, all that. So why I replaced it with these is when you have the through type connector, you push it all the way to the bottom and out the end in this particular case. And what happens is, in order to get the Bowden tube snug, you have to pull up on the PTFE a little bit. And that leads to a gap down here. And that just fills up with plastic. It causes clogs, it causes jams, does terrible things. I couldn't get a good print until I did this. Another thing I did, this goes above and beyond that, improves it even further, is I replaced that plastic acrylic piece, really is what it is, with a glass bed. Now the acrylic, they say, oh yeah, well you put the sheet on it, should be good. It's not going to be as flat as glass. Which brings me to my next upgrade. In order to keep the bed flat, because that's just a giant sheet of aluminum that's unsupported, it's only about 3 millimeters thick, I add this C-channel. This is a 1 inch by 1 inch C-channel that I have just bolted in there. There's actually, I don't know if it'll bring that out on camera, but there's a nut in there. Come on, focus. There's a nut in that spring that's holding everything together. And that's some of the nuts that come in the kit, so I just made use of them. They're extra spare parts, at least the way I assembled it. And that has been really good for me because it keeps it rigid, and there are some peculiarities. This one is just like this one. Okay, though this hole for some reason is further out. You'll see that when they milled out for fitting the screw in, that there's actually, the pocket cuts into the side versus over here. It's better if you just slot this. If you have the ability to just cut this out as a slot, use a Dremel tool, it won't matter, because just take it from the hole that would work for these end ones and just mill the rest of it out. You could do that with a saw or something else. This one is probably the most unique and the most tricky to make. You can see I carved away a lot of that in order to make it work with the power. I also wrapped it with electrical tape. I'm faithful in the way I did it. It's never going to create a short. I ask if you do this, do it at your own risk. It could cause a short. And why didn't I just flip it? Well, there's actually electronics here that, if I would flip it over, would be interacting with the aluminum anyway. So I felt it was better just to cut it away. Though it would be kind of cool if you flipped it over and did it that way, but didn't really work for me. was giving me a few issues, so I flipped it back. What else have I done? I've done the upgrades here like this. I had to put the screw in here, though I don't actually highly recommend this. I didn't see an advantage of it, and it's actually only worn out these bearings here. I think it's not exactly trailing right, it's not scaled right. You're better off using the original. Or at least not using these styles. There's a few other designs that I might try out in the future. Other things I did is I made those come in at a singular line. Not too much of an advantage, but I just found that it made everything parallel again, the way I did these things here, and really solved a bunch of problems. Yeah, you could have this up here, reverse that back again, but it doesn't make much of a difference because it comes from low down there, comes up here, and then it goes up on this end, and then when we come back around here, it comes back down. So there's no reason to have a riser there the way I have it. And before I set it up like this, I had a bunch of skipping, and it was just becoming a huge headache. And this solved a lot for me, just wiring it up like this. Other things I've done, I've had a lot of wire looming, and that's just for my sanity. And another aesthetic thing was adding lights. There we have the lights. They really make it so if I have a camera on this, it doesn't have to run in night mode. Makes it that much easier, and it's on both sides, so it really casts lights and makes it easier for me to see if I have my camera on this, so it's really awesome. And that's just directly wired into the 12 volts there. I'm eventually going to go to 24 volts, and that's solely so I can run this at PETG temperatures. It's just one of those things where if I can run it at PETG temperatures, that's a better plastic in my opinion for certain applications than PLA. PLA is really good for prototypes and other things like that, you know, things that don't have to put up with high temperatures. But if anyone knows, PLA will melt in your car, so, or in any high temperature application, so you have to be careful with that. So if you have any questions, lay them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. Hopefully this won't be the last of the videos on this. I'm hoping to enclose this enclose this printer here, and that should be interesting. I did the easiest part here, and that's why I had some spare nuts, is you use several nuts in order to install this. Well, 2 of the nuts are spares, but 4 of the nuts are for attaching this. What I actually used was some standoffs. They give you some little plastic bits, little plastic spacers and longer screws. This is longer screws. These are the long screws, but it runs into a standoff down below. And this is just cleaner. It's not sticking off the side. I don't know if I'm going to do that for the power supply. I think it'd be just better to leave that sticking out where it is. But A lot of cool things in the future. Please like or subscribe if you want to keep up to date with this project. And I will see you next time.